G'day bookworms and welcome to another vlog. So today I've set myself a challenge. I'm going to recommend you a book for every letter of the alphabet. So 26 book recommendations from a very casual librarian that I think you'll really enjoy. So if you haven't already, get yourself a pen and paper and something warm to drink, get cozy and get ready to write these down. Okay, bookworms, I've got my ultimate recommendations list. Everything from A to Z of the best books that I've read that I can recommend to you as a librarian. If you're new here, hi, I'm Ange. I'm your very casual librarian. I'm an academic librarian at a university here in Melbourne in Australia. I'm also a mum of two and I'm doing my master's at university at the moment. So I've worked in public libraries as well before this job for about 8 years. So I've seen some books come and go and I think I've got a pretty solid list of recommendations here for you. And if you're a returning bookworm, as always, thanks for being here and welcome home. Okay, so I've got my list. I've thought about this long and hard. Some of these books I own, some of them I'll just put a picture here of the cover that I read. Without further ado, let's get started. So A, the best book that I could recommend for A, it's a no-brainer. It's been my comfort book since I was a child. It is Anne of Green Gables by L.M. Montgomery. Of course, this is one of my favorite books. My best friend Emily, when I was growing up, she was Diana and I was Anne. I grew up watching the movies and reading these books, and they are my ultimate comfort book. They're set in Prince Edward Island, which is an island of Canada. They're set pre-1900s. I think it's about the 1890s kind of. I might have that wrong, but like that's about the era. And she is a young orphan who is shipped off to a new family, a couple who have requested her from Prince Edward Island. It's her adventures as she grows up and comes of age and goes to university. And it's a beautiful story. Anne is not always very likable, but she's a lovable character and I just adore this book. I've always adored this book. So forever a favorite of mine, Anne of Green Gables by L.M. Montgomery. Okay, B. So some of you may have seen this book already in one of my previous vlogs where I did a road trip and I read this book on my road trip to Jindabyne. And that's The Bass Rock by Evie Wyld. This book was one of the best things I read last year. I think it was actually the best thing I read last year. It's so hard to describe. It's about women and the way women experience gendered violence over time in a small community. This book will make you laugh, it will make you cry, it will make you angry, especially as a woman and if you're a feminist. It made me so angry. It made me feel all the emotions and I am changed from having read it. And I don't have the physical book here because I've given it to my mum to read. She loved it. She's given it to her friends to read. So, you know, I can't recommend this book enough. Okay, C. C is, hopefully I get her name right. It's Convenience Store Woman by Sayaka Murata. I had heard about this book, but I didn't really know what it was about. I remember picking it up and reading the back and going, seems odd. And this is I don't really know even how to describe this book. I think the Japanese writers do this really well. It describes a woman who has a very she's just got a little life, a little simple life. She works in a convenience store. Her family have kind of pressured her to want more for her life and to improve her situation in their eyes and to, you know, get married and do a degree and get a better job. And she's actually just really happy doing what she does. And she's actually really happy working in the convenience store and she's really, really good at it. She's kind of one of those people who's just born to work in a convenience store. She's really good at it and she loves it, and I think it's a real celebration of how beautiful and how meaningful a simple life can be. I read this book and felt really comforted by it and it made me really happy. I really enjoyed that as well, and that's Convenience Store Woman by Sayaka Murata. The fourth book that I read that I can recommend for D, my favorite D book, is Daisy Darker by Alice Feeney, and this was recommended to me by Wendy, who is one of the OG followers on this YouTube channel, and she absolutely nailed it. I loved it. It's very gothic, it's very dark, it's very spooky, but it's about a family who gets stuck on an island because the vehicle access to the island is cut off during a big storm, and then something happens and they have to work out what's happened while they're all stuck on the island, and they're not sure whether they're stuck with a potential predator or the danger is stuck on the island with them. And I loved this book so much. It was really, really good to read. I couldn't put it down. My book for E is Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman, and I read this a few years ago and I just remember being so touched by it. It's about a woman who we never actually find out whether this is so, but I suspect that she perhaps is neurodivergent. She might have autism or something like that, but she's grown up in a very isolated and stunted way. And it's just the way that she goes about living her ordinary life. And we find out more about her background as we go along, and it starts to sort of explain some of the behaviors she has and the way that why she does the things that she does. And we get more empathy with her as we go along. She's actually quite a tragic character, but at the beginning you don't kind of know what to make of her, and then by the end you find that she's actually quite a brave and amazing character. So I really loved that book. I think if you liked Sally Rooney, Normal People, it kind of reminds me a little bit of that. F, of course, is the most amazing book, Foster by Claire Keegan. I think it's a movie adaptation called The Quiet Girl or A Quiet Girl. This is about a young girl in Ireland who comes from a big dysfunctional, kind of violent, unhealthy family dynamic where she's a little bit lost because she's a quiet soul and an introvert, and she gets shipped off to her mother's cousin, a couple who live on a farm for the summer holidays, and they don't have any children of their own because they lost their young boy when he was about 10. So they have a lot of love to give, but it's got nowhere to go, and they just nurture this little girl, and she starts to come out of her shell, and it's such a beautiful story. It made me cry, and it's a very short book. It's almost a novella. Claire Keegan, the genius of Claire Keegan is she does so much with so little. Her stories are very simple, the language is very simple, but she does so much with it. Just that really simple pared back style is incredible, and I loved this book so much. G, I have G. It's The Great Alone by Kristen Hanna, and I could not put this down. This book is incredible. It's about a family who moved to Alaska, so it's parents, mother and father, and a young girl, and they moved to a very isolated homesteading off-grid property in Alaska. So they're very isolated, and the father, we learn, has quite a few issues that have not been addressed or dealt with. So then they're all kind of cut off from society and things start to slide downhill, and I just adored this book so much. If you love kind of travel writing, if you love writing that can really evoke a sense of place, like you can just picture the scenery where they are, and it's breathtaking even reading the descriptions about Alaska and about the wildlife and the snow and the hardship and the beauty of it. I loved that about Kristen Hanna. There's very rarely Kristen Hanna writes a book that I don't like, but this is my favorite of hers. It's The Great Alone. So H, I don't have it, but it's The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. I read The Handmaid's Tale when I was in my last year of high school, and I did it for my final exam, and it blew my mind then, and having read it as an adult, it's even a whole different experience reading it as an adult, and having had children and that kind of thing, especially in today's day and age, it's I think even more poignant and powerful. It's a speculative fiction. It's a dystopian novel. There's a trigger warning here, I suppose. I think I should add as well, for sexual abuse of women. So if that's not for you, then just tread carefully if you're going to attempt this book. Yeah, as a feminist novel, this would be the first one I'd hand someone if they wanted to begin with speculative fiction and feminist writing. This would probably be the first one I'd hand someone, because it's just so powerful and eye-opening, and Margaret Atwood is a queen. I love her other book, Robber Bride. That's one of my favorites as well. I know she's written a whole bunch. I have a whole bunch on the shelf. I have not even dipped a toe into her books, but The Robber Bride is one of my favorite books. I read that in my 20s and absolutely loved it, and The Handmaid's Tale is like fundamental to my education, so that's got to be my book for H. For I picked The Island of Sea Women by Lisa C. This is about the women who the mermaid women on the Isle of Jeju of South Korea, and these are women who they have a whole societal system that's based around diving. The women are the divers in the society. They bring in the money because the water is so cold that the women tend to be able to stay underwater longer. So they're better divers because they have a higher body fat composition and stuff like that. So the way that the society has been set up historically, unfortunately, this is like a society that's starting to die out now in modern times, but there's still mermaid women, and they can dive they can stay underwater for like 10 minutes at a time. They're incredible. They free dive and they collect seafood, and that's how they support their families while the men stay on the island and look after the children and look after the home. This book was amazing, and I want to go to Jeju Island now. I just want to go there and see this for myself in real life. It's a beautiful story, but it's also just a really interesting study of a society that's not like ours. So I really enjoy that. I love that in books anyway. For J, I had Julia and the Shark by Kieran Millwood Hargrave. This is actually a junior fiction book, and it's about a young girl called Julia who moves with her mother. Her mother is suffering from some sort of mental health issues. It's not actually specific. I don't think you're supposed to really know clearly what is going on because it's seen through the eyes of Julia, who's like 11, and she's just experiencing it through the eyes of a child. Mum is a marine biologist, and she's headed north. I think it's Norway or Finland or somewhere like that, and she wants to study those ancient sharks that are supposed to be 300 years old, and she knows of one, and that's the shark in the title, and so she's gone particularly to study this one. And again, it's about isolation. It's about adult issues as seen through the eyes of a child and experienced by a child. And it's just a really beautiful book. It's very short and it's got illustrations in it, but I really enjoyed it. I'm not sure it's a middle grade junior kind of fiction book, but I really think it's written for adults. You know, it's one of those books where you really think anyone could pick this up and get something from it. Yeah, it's just a beautiful story. So that's Julia and the Shark. K has to be my all-time favorite Japanese to English translation book, and that's Kitchen by Banana Yoshimoto. I remember a friend of mine giving me this to read when I was in year 12, and I had no idea what to expect. They just said, oh my gosh, this book is absolutely beautiful. You'll love it. I'm not going to even tell you anything about it. Just read this book. And I started reading it and I was in tears. It is the most beautiful story. Kitchen is about a young woman coming to the end of her schooling teenage life, and she's becoming a young adult, and she's not really sure what to do next. She's kind of at that passing point where she's not quite an adult yet, but she's left childhood behind and she's not sure what to do next. So she knows she loves cooking and she knows she loves food, so she decides to enroll herself in like a culinary course, and she has to move out of home to go to this culinary school. And she's quite a shy person. She's very introverted, and she moves in with a young man and his transgender mother. Oh my gosh, this book is just beautiful. It's just a delight, and you just finish this book and you want to hug it. It's just the most beautiful story. It's sad in parts, it's beautiful in parts, it's funny. It's really about found family and how people can go from being strangers to being the most important people in your life. And, you know, sometimes people are just put in your life for a reason, at that time for a reason. And oh my gosh, I cannot recommend this enough, guys. Banana Yoshimoto's Kitchen. So the next book, I don't have a copy of it, I don't think. I feel like I have a copy, but I can't find it on the shelf. So maybe I've loaned it to somebody. But that's Little Women, of course, by Louisa May Alcott. I've watched the movies and I've read the book. It's the ultimate comfort book. It's the ultimate comfort story about 4 sisters who live this wild kind of bohemian life. Their dad's gone off to war and they're waiting for him to come back. And they've got this beautiful mother who loves her girls and teaches them to be outspoken and creative. And it's just the love of family, the love of women, the love of sisters, just the warmth of their home and their lives and their love for each other. It's like a warm hug, this book. And it's Christmassy too. So if you're looking for a Christmassy read, it's definitely a Christmassy read, especially the beginning. You fall in love with the March family. And the main character is Jo, but it's really a story about the whole family. Okay, so M, I found it really hard to choose between 2 books for M, so I'm going to include them both here. So my first book is Memoirs of a Geisha by Arthur Golden. This book made me fall in love with Japan. It's about a young girl who, in the early 1900s, she is sort of sold. She's trafficked by her father, who is in a very dire situation after his wife has died of cancer. He's very poor. He knows he can't feed his girls. He can't provide them with any sort of start or any sort of life. So he sells them into what he thinks is going to be a good life for them, into potentially becoming Maiko in Kyoto in Japan. The 2 sisters go very different directions, which you find out through the book, and they really have zero control over what happens to them. They just kind of end up where they end up. Fortunately for Chio, who's the younger daughter, she's very beautiful. She's conventionally very pretty. So she goes in a different path to her older sister. She becomes a successful geisha over time and finds her kind of path. I learnt so much from this book. There's obviously a lot of research has gone into this book, and I couldn't tell you how accurate it is, but I did learn so much. And since being in Japan and reading further on Geiko life and those traditional Japanese arts traditions, it seems to be still fairly accurate. I think it still stands up. I reread this quite often. I think I read it about once every 2 years. I reread this. It's a great comfort book of mine too, and it's just a beautiful story. That's one of the ones I had for M, and the other one is Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and I adored that too. It's about 3 young adults who have grown up in a very dysfunctional family life. Their dad's a performer, he's a singer. Mum's kind of stayed put and raised the kids while he's been off living his dreams of becoming a famous artist in America in like the 60s and 70s. And then Mum passes away, and the older sister has to take on that, role of mothering the younger children, and what that does to her, the expectations it sets up for her, and how it affects her life to have this responsibility put upon her really early by her father and by her mother passing. It's set in California and in the 60s and 70s and 80s as well. It's kind of got a bit of surf culture in there. It's got a bit of that LA Hollywood culture in there. I really enjoyed it. It's a great book. She does a good job with stories like this, Taylor Jenkins Reid. For N, I had one I read quite recently actually, and that's Nest by Inga Simpson. It's another really, really simple, elegant, quiet book. And I think that's why I was really in the mood for that. It was really the perfect book for the time for me to read. And it's just about a woman who lives on her own, and she lives in a town that she grew up in, and she starts tutoring. She's an artist, and she starts tutoring a young boy in, giving him art classes, a local boy. And she finds out a tragedy's happened at the high school, the local high school, and then learning little bits and pieces of this tragedy that's happened in their community, and the fact that she kind of knows more than she at first thinks about what has happened. She has more information and more background knowledge on the people in this situation, and the more her art student tells her, the more she kind of gets involved in the mystery that's happened. Yeah, it's a beautiful book. It doesn't there's no violence in it. It's not a book that's tense or anything like that. It's just a story of a woman unraveling and unpicking a mystery. Then we've got, for O, we've got Over This Backbone by Yar Reeves. And I gave this book 5 out of 5. It was awesome. It's a book that involves adventures. It involves hiking in the Australian Alps. It involves a woman trying to extract herself from a really unhealthy relationship, and she is quite young, and she's fallen into this relationship quite young, and she's starting to discover that this is a really manipulative, unhealthy relationship, and it's the way that she's kind of unpicking herself from it and processing it as she's going on these amazing walking hike adventures. And she also works at an outdoor adventure camp for children as well, and she's kind of having to see this person when she goes back to work, and then having to go away and kind of process her interactions with him when she's been back at the camp. I really saw myself in my early relationships in this book, and the way that you kind of have the theory of a relationship and what it should look like, and then the practicality. You don't really have the experience to kind of often explain or voice what's happening, or to process what's happening, and you're trying to work out, you know, why this person is behaving this way or why you're feeling this way. And then I think as you get older and with time, you start to tolerate less as well, and you start to kind of see things for what they are pretty quickly. But this is like early on in this woman's life. She's young and she's kind of still figuring all this stuff out. And gee, it was a good book. It's really well done. And trigger warning for domestic violence. It does kind of, there's nothing really traumatic or overt, but there is that undercurrent of manipulation and coercive control. So just a trigger warning for that. The next one is The Power by Naomi Alderman. This was a recommendation from another librarian friend of mine, and it blew my mind, this book. This is a bit like The Handmaid's Tale. So if you like The Handmaid's Tale, you might like The Power by Naomi Alderman. It's a feminist dystopian speculative fiction book. So young women are starting to discover that they are evolving to develop a power like that men don't have. And it's starting to kind of, young women are starting to discover all over the world that they have this ability that I don't want to give too much away, but young women are starting to, you know, go through puberty and then discover that they have this ability. The best way I can describe the theme of this book is how power corrupts, and this really inverts social dynamics and gender politics. It really inverts that phenomena, and I found it absolutely fascinating. It's quite a confronting book. It has quite a bit of violence in it, so be prepared for that. But this might be the book for you if you like The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. This is quite similar, I would say, along those same lines. The next book was The Queen's Gambit by Walter Tevis. I read the book and I watched the Netflix series, loved them both. Just such a good story, honestly. I can't even describe why I loved this. I think I just got really involved in the character. I got really involved in the character, and you don't like her. You kind of, she's not likable at all, but for some reason, the way that Walter Tevis writes this book, you get invested, and it's based on a true story, and maybe that's why. I'm not really sure why I love this book as much as I did, to be honest, but I did. I don't like chess. I play chess, but I don't love chess. I couldn't really tell you what it was about this book that made me love it so much, but I think it really is the character and your investment in this character. I think it's an underdog story too, and I always go for the underdog. I think if you're the sort of person that always backs an underdog, I think that's why I loved it so much, honestly. My next book for R, of course, no one's going to be surprised here. To no one's surprise, it's Riders by Jilly Cooper. This is my ultimate comfort book. This is the book that I take on holidays if I'm going away. It's an absolute thick brick doorstop of a book. Don't let that intimidate you. I have given this to people who have been in reading slumps and they've gone, oh, are you kidding me? I'm like, no, just start it. Just start the first few pages. I'm telling you, it'll hook you. And it always does. 10 out of 10 times, this has hooked someone in. Like, it never fails. It's a story about horses, about rich people, about scoundrels, about scandals, about sport, about the Olympics, about high flyers and relationships, and it's got sex in it, it's got scandals, it's just got everything. It's got so many characters, and there's a whole trilogy. Actually, I think it even goes further than the trilogy, but there's a whole world that Jilly has written around the characters of these books. And her main character, he's a rich rake called Rupert Campbell Black. He's in all of the books in some form, and he is a famous show jumper who's been born, to the manor born, and he's an absolute cad. He's horrible, he's a misogynist, he's arrogant, but you cannot help but love him for some reason through all the series. I don't know what it is, but you love him, you hate him and you love him. And the books, he's the main character in this book, but he features in some respect in all the books, and it's fabulous. That's the best way I can put it. It's absolutely fabulous. If you love a good rollicking romp, and you will laugh. Like, I have howled at some of the lines and some of the scenes in this book. She writes a funny scene. She doesn't take herself too seriously, and I love that about her. And that's Writers by Jilly Cooper. It's a good time in a book, I tell you what. So, my book for S. Okay, I loved this one too, Saving Fish from Drowning by Amy Tan. This book was just so different. I haven't read anything like this before or since. It's so hard to describe what this book is about, but it's the main issue in this book is cultural misunderstanding. It's about a group of people who have decided to go on a holiday to, I think it's Myanmar, Burma, and they had a woman who was from that region who is a friend of theirs who was going to take them and be their tour guide, and she has an accident and passes away unexpectedly months before they're about to go on their holiday. And they decide after time, that they're all going to go as a celebration to her, and to sort of, in memory of her, they're going to continue with the holiday that she had booked, because she'd had planned so many things and she was such a good friend, and they're all devastated that this accident's happened. So they decide to go in her memory and enjoy, have a celebration to her as a holiday. This book is about how easy it is to be culturally insensitive in a foreign country without even knowing that you are. And sometimes it's just through ignorance. Sometimes, it's always through ignorance really, but sometimes it's through you're well-meaning, but you do something that's incredibly offensive. And sometimes it's just thoughtlessness, like completely culturally offensive, and you're not even aware that you've done anything. That's what this book is about. And Amy Tan just writes these scenarios that you see from different angles so well. And honestly, through this whole book, I was like, oh no, like through the whole book, because it's just this comedy of errors of these innocent people who have gone with good intentions to have a lovely holiday, and just mistake after mistake after mistake, and situation after situation where if they'd had their guide with them, probably would have never happened, because she would have never let them walk into these situations. But they have no idea what they're doing, so they're just trying to have this holiday, and they're just putting themselves in these awful situations again and again and again. And it's really funny, it's kind of tense, it's a nail biter, I just thought it's so well written. Okay, so for tea, I had There Was Still Love by Fable Parrott, or Perrett. I think it's Perrett. I'm not really sure, Parrott. She is an Australian. She's a fellow Victorian, and this was the first book of hers that I'd read, and I really loved it. It's about two sisters who are originally from, I think, Russia or the Ukraine, somewhere like that. And one of the sisters takes a punt and moves to England and has an opportunity to go and get an education in England, and one of them stays home in their hometown. And just the way these two women's lives just diverge, like these two sisters have these completely different lives, and how they keep in touch with each other and how they try and relate to each other, even though their lives have gone in two very different directions. And it's told through the eyes of children. And I think Fable Perrett does this really, really well, in my opinion, in my experience. She tells the stories through the eyes of children because children don't have any preconceived notions of how things are supposed to be, or how they don't have their own experience to draw on. They just see the experience and the events as they happen, and they try and make sense of it. And the children in this story are trying to make sense of the way that their grandmothers and their mothers are because of the way that their lives went. And yeah, it's just a beautiful book. I really liked it. It's not very long. And You was Unpolished Gem by Alice Pung. I love Alice Pung. She wrote Lorinda, and I love that too. Unpolished Gem is about her experience growing up Asian in Australia in like the 80s and 90s. And, you know, just something so far from my own experience, growing up, you know, white in Australia in that same time period. And I just found it really fascinating. It was a really good insight into someone else's experience culturally. And I think anytime a book can do that for you, it's kind of good. It's a good thing. I love Alice Pung. I'm going to read more of hers for sure. V is The Virgin Suicides by Jeffrey Eugenides, and it's a very strange book. It's kind of eerie, and it's about a family with 3 young girls who live in a house, and they're quite insular and a bit strange. The girls are kind of odd. So I can't, without giving too much away, it's just about a really dysfunctional family with girls and how these girls rebel basically from the family in different ways, but really, really well written and really very strange. It's a very strange tale, very eerie and unsettling, and I really like that atmosphere about it. It was awesome. Okay, W was When We Have Wings by Claire Corbett, another feminist speculative fiction. This is a time where if you have means, if you're a rich person, we have worked out a way in the future to give humans wings, to make us grow wings on our backs. It's like a non-dominant gene that we lost through evolution over time, and scientists have discovered how to give it back to us. So we can fly, but there's a downside, there's a cost to being able to fly as well. And the way that society has had to adapt, and the way that it's created a real divide in the society, because only rich people can afford to have this procedure, but also the upkeep required to keep your wings and to keep the ability to fly, and what that costs them, and then also what then they have to do to the lower class to ensure that they can keep this privilege. It's an incredible book. It's a mystery, it's a thriller, and it's also a speculative fiction, and I absolutely loved it. It's a feminist book as well. Yeah, if you like speculative fiction, When We Have Wings by Claire Corbett was excellent. I have never read a book that starts with X, I discovered. I don't know if there is books that start with X. It's a hard one, so I had to cheat. I had to pivot a little bit on this one. Instead of a book that started with X, I'm going to recommend Foxlow. It's got an X in it. That's the best I could do, by Eleanor Wasserberg. And Foxlow is about a commune. It's about a child growing up in a commune, and initially this commune is about living in harmony, and it has really altruistic beginnings, but things take a very dark turn, and the community, without giving away too many spoilers, the community takes a really dark turn and it becomes really destructive very quickly. And it's about a child's experience of growing up in this community and the shift and the change change that happens and how this child kind of starts to recognize that this isn't a nice place to be anymore. Just a trigger warning for this one too, there is domestic abuse and child abuse in this one. But yeah, I really enjoyed this book for what it was, and I think if you're into, a bit of a spoiler, if you're into cults, it's a really interesting study on those sort of behaviors. Why had Yellow Face by Rebecca F. Kuang. Loved this. It's about cultural appropriation and about academic appropriation. It's about a young academic who envies her young friend, and then when that friend unexpectedly passes away, she appropriates the work that this friend was doing to write a novel that ends up being a bestseller, but then attracts some attention and criticism that she wasn't expecting. I loved this book so much, and I've given it to my husband. He hasn't read it yet, but I'll tell you what he thinks of it when he reads it. The last book that I have for the letter Z, again, I have not read a book that starts with Z. If anyone's read a book that starts with Z, I haven't, so I cheated a bit with this one too, and I'm going to recommend the book Thief by Marcus Zusak. That's how I cheated. But the book Thief is a beautiful historical novel about a girl growing up in World War II. She is living in Germany, and a friend of the family who is Jewish is hiding with their family from the Nazis. And, you know, it's one of those, it's a real tearjerker. If you liked Anne Frank's diary, it's kind of a bit like along those lines, but a beautiful book, and I think quite topical for the times that we're living in at the moment as well. Beautiful story. It does have a lot of issues, you know, with war and genocide and that kind of thing. So again, tread carefully with this one, but it's mostly just a beautiful story about the relationships between these people and about a young girl's experience. And it's a bit of a coming of age story as well. So those are my recommendations, bookworms. 26 recommendations for you, A to Z sort of. I did my best. But if you have read any of my favorite A to Z recommended books, comment down below if you liked any of them, or if you have any recommendations, especially for X and Z. If you've read any X and Z books that I could add, comment down below, because I got nothing. I had nothing. Oh, I hope that's a helpful list for you, bookworms. I've been in a bit of a book slump, a reading slump, because I've been so busy with work and uni, but I'm just starting to come out of it now. These are all majority 5-star, some 4-star, but majority 5-star books that I really enjoyed. So if you find yourself having a similar reading taste to me, I can recommend all of these to you as well. Okay, I better finish this so I can edit it and get it out for you on time. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel, and if you have friends who are bookworms who need some book recommendations, send them over this way and direct them to this vlog so they can get some ideas too, and share their ideas in the comments below. I love a good book recommendation. A few of these books on this list came from bookworm book recommendations. Okay, I'm going to go and make myself a cup of tea. I'm reading Antarctica by Claire Keegan. It's a book of short stories, and I'm about halfway through, so that's what I'm going to do this afternoon, because it is grey and wet and freezing today, so it's a perfect reading day. I'm going to snuggle up with a blanket and some tea and a cat and my book. I think that's what I'm going to do this afternoon. Perfection. Saturday afternoon perfection. I hope you're doing the same thing, and I hope you've done something kind for yourself today. All right, I will catch you in the next vlog, bookworms. Mwah!